158. The Maui Courier Station Mutiny. Tong Pass was the strategic gateway to Chang'an, a natural fortress with rugged terrain and narrow roads. The Tang court had stationed General Geshu Han there with a large force to defend against An Lushan's rebels. For 6 months, rebel General Cui Qianyu besieged Tong Pass but failed to breach its defenses. The Tang army had a nightly tradition of lighting beacon fires on their watchtowers, signaling that the situation was under control. These signals were passed from one tower to the next, all the way to Chang'an, reassuring the people in the capital. While the rebels were struggling outside Tong Pass, internal disputes plagued the Tang court. Geshu Han insisted on holding Tong Pass, waiting for the right moment to strike. Generals Guo Zi and Li Guanbi, leading the Tang resistance in Hebei, advised the emperor to avoid confrontation at Tong Pass and instead launch a counterattack on An Lushan's base in Fanyang, modern Beijing. However, Chancellor Yang Guozhong had other plans. A court official warned Yang, "All military power is in Geshu Han's hands. If he wins, he will return to Chang'an in triumph. You will lose your position as chancellor." Yang Guozhong, aware of his unpopularity, feared Geshu Han more than the rebels. He convinced Emperor Xuanzong that the rebel army was on the verge of collapse and that Geshu Han's reluctance to attack would cost them a decisive victory. Blinded by trust in his chancellor, Xuanzong ignored all military advice and repeatedly sent imperial decrees ordering Geshu Han to attack. The catastrophe at Tong Pass. Geshu Han knew that leaving the pass would be disastrous, but he could not defy the emperor's command. Heartbroken, he wept bitterly, then led 200,000 soldiers out of Tong Pass. The moment they left the fortified pass, Cui Qianyu sprang his trap. Elite rebel troops had been secretly positioned in the valleys west of Lingbao, modern Henan. The Tang army walked straight into an ambush. The battle was a complete disaster. Nearly the entire Tang force was wiped out, leaving only 8,000 survivors. Seeing the army in chaos, the rebels stormed Tong Pass and captured Geshu Han. With Tong Pass lost, there was no natural barrier left to protect Chang'an. Local officials and garrisons abandoned their posts, fleeing in panic. At first, Geshu Han managed to send urgent messages to Chang'an. Then, the distress signals stopped coming, and the beacon fires failed to light. Only then did Xuanzong finally realize the empire was on the brink of collapse. The imperial court in chaos. With the enemy advancing, Xuanzong turned to Yang Guozhong for advice. Yang, desperate to save himself, convened a council of officials. However, no one had a plan. They were all too frightened to speak. Realizing that staying in Chang'an meant certain death, Yang Guozhong urged Xuanzong to flee to Sichuan. That very night, the emperor secretly left Chang'an, accompanied by Yang Guozhong, consort Yang Guifei, the royal family, General Chen Xuanli, and the imperial guards. They quietly opened the palace gates and escaped into the night. To ensure safety, the court sent eunuchs ahead to inform local officials to prepare accommodations. A humiliating escape. When they reached Xianyang, they discovered that the officials had fled. The imperial party had no food and no supplies. Desperate, the emperor's attendants begged the local villagers for food. Some peasants brought them coarse sorghum cakes. The royal family, who had lived in luxury their entire lives, had never tasted such rough food. However, hunger overcame their pride. Lacking bowls and chopsticks, they ate with their hands, devouring every last crumb. Xuanzong forced himself to swallow a few bites, but was so overwhelmed that tears streamed down his face. At that moment, an elderly villager pushed through the crowd and spoke directly to the emperor. An Lushan's rebellion did not happen overnight. For years, people reported his treachery, but instead of being rewarded, they were imprisoned or executed. Your Majesty's ministers only know how to flatter and deceive. You were completely cut off from reality. We, the common people, have known this day would come for a long time. But the palace gates were too deep, and our voices could not reach you. Now, only after disaster strikes, can we finally speak to you face to face. Xuanzong hung his head in shame, replying, "I have been blind, but it is too late for regrets." The Maui Courier Station Mutiny. After days of exhausting travel, the imperial entourage arrived at Maui Courier Station, present-day Xingping, Shaanxi. By this time, the imperial guards were furious. They had been forced to abandon Chang'an, suffering hunger and exhaustion. They blamed Yang Guozhong for the entire disaster. At that moment, 20 Tibetan envoys approached Yang Guozhong, demanding food supplies. Before Yang could respond, the soldiers erupted in anger, shouting, "Yang Guozhong is a traitor. He's conspiring with the enemy." With that, the soldiers loosed their arrows, killing Yang Guozhong on the spot. Seeing their chancellor dead, the enraged troops surrounded Xuanzong's residence. Xuanzong, hearing the commotion, asked his eunuchs what was happening. They informed him that the soldiers had executed Yang Guozhong. Shocked, Xuanzong stepped outside, leaning on a cane, and tried to calm the troops, telling them to return to their posts. The soldiers, however, ignored him. General Chen Xuanli then approached and bluntly told Xuanzong, "Yang Guozhong was a traitor, but consort Yang Guifei must also die." Xuanzong was stunned. He loved Yang Guifei dearly and could not bear the thought of losing her. After a long silence, he finally pleaded, "How could she be guilty? She knew nothing of Yang Guozhong's schemes." Eunuch Gao Lishir, sensing that the emperor had no choice, pressed further, "Your Majesty, the soldiers have killed Yang Guozhong. If Yang Guifei remains alive, they will never be at ease. If the troops remain angry, Your Majesty will also be in danger. Please consider this carefully." Realizing that his own life was at stake, Xuanzong reluctantly gave in. He ordered Gao Lishir to take Yang Guifei to a secluded place, where she was strangled with a silk sash. A broken emperor. After hearing that Yang Guifei had been executed, the soldiers finally calmed down and dispersed. Xuanzong, however, was left devastated. His beloved consort was dead, his empire was crumbling, and he had lost all authority. Terrified and broken, he fled south to Chengdu, where he would spend the rest of his life in shame and regret. Meanwhile, the Tang dynasty had no leader. But the people of Maui refused to let the empire fall. As Xuanzong abandoned his throne, the people and remaining soldiers rallied around his son, Prince Li Hang, urging him to take charge. Li Hang stayed behind and began organizing the resistance against An Lushan. Days later, in Lingwu, modern Ningxia, Li Hang declared himself Emperor Suzong of Tang, the new ruler of a shattered empire. 159. Zhang Sun's strawmen borrowing arrows strategy. After Emperor Xuanzong fled Chang'an, and Lushan's rebel forces took control of the capital. The Tang generals Guozi and Li Guangbi, upon hearing the news, were forced to abandon their campaign in Hebei. Li Guangbi retreated to Taiyuan, while Guozi withdrew to Lingwu. As a result, the territories that had been reclaimed in Hebei once again fell to the rebels. The defense of Yongqiu. Before the fall of Tong Pass, An Lushan had ordered Tang defector Ling Huchao to attack Yongqiu, modern Qi County, Hunan. Ling Huchao had once served as the county magistrate of Yongqiu but had defected when An Lushan occupied Luoyang. Nearby, in Jinyuan County, the magistrate Zhang Sun refused to surrender to the rebels. He rallied over 1,000 loyal soldiers and seized control of Yongqiu, preparing to defend it against Ling Huchao's attack. Ling Huchao led 40,000 rebel troops to besiege Yongqiu. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Zhang Sun and his troops defended the city for over 60 days. The soldiers ate in their armor and bandaged their wounds before returning to battle. The city endured over 300 attacks, repelling each one. The rebels suffered heavy casualties, forcing Ling Huchao to retreat. A second siege and the execution of traitors. Not long after, Ling Huchao returned with reinforcements to launch another attack. By then, the news of Chang'an's fall had spread to Yongqiu. Ling Huchao sent a letter to Zhang Sun, urging him to surrender. Hearing that Chang'an had been lost, many Tang officers in Yongqiu lost morale. 6 senior commanders, all respected figures, approached Jiang Sun and said, "We are vastly outnumbered. We don't even know if the emperor is still alive. We should surrender." Jiang Sun was furious but remained outwardly calm. He pretended to agree, telling them that they would discuss it the next day. The following morning, he gathered all the soldiers in the main hall. He then summoned the 6 officers and immediately sentenced them to death for treason and undermining morale. They were executed on the spot. Seeing this, the rest of the troops were deeply moved, vowing to fight to the end. The straw men borrowing arrows trick. The rebels continued their attacks, and Jiang Sun's forces relied on archers to keep them at bay. However, after weeks of fighting, the city's supply of arrows ran out. Jiang Sun was desperate. One dark night, hundreds of black-clad figures climbed down ropes from the city walls. A rebel scout spotted them and immediately reported to Ling Huqiao. Ling Huqiao assumed Jiang Sun's forces were launching a night raid and ordered his soldiers to fire a barrage of arrows at the figures. The rebels kept shooting throughout the night. At dawn, they realized that they had been tricked. The soldiers they had been firing at were actually straw dummies. Meanwhile, inside the city, Jiang Sun's men pulled the dummies back up, each covered in hundreds of arrows. By the time they finished counting, they had recovered tens of thousands of arrows. The city's archers were fully restocked. A bold counterattack. A few nights later, the same straw men appeared on the city walls again. This time, the rebels laughed, thinking Jiang Sun was trying to trick them again. No one bothered shooting. However, this time, the figures were not straw men, they were 500 elite Tang warriors. Taking advantage of the rebels' inattention, Jiang Sun's troops slipped into the enemy camp and launched a devastating surprise attack. The rebels were caught completely off guard. Their formation collapsed, and the entire camp fell into chaos. Ling Huqiao's soldiers panicked and fled, some running over 10 miles before stopping. Having been tricked twice, Ling Huqiao was furious. He reinforced his forces and launched another all-out assault on the city. The iron-willed general, Lei Wanchun. Jiang Sun appointed his trusted lieutenant, Lei Wanchun, to oversee the city's defenses. Seeing Lei Wanchun leading from the front, the rebels targeted him. Arrows rained down on him, and he took 6 direct hits to the face. Astonishingly, Lei Wanchun did not move. Despite his face being pierced with arrows, he stood firm, unflinching. The rebels hesitated, thinking he was another trick, perhaps a wooden dummy placed by Jiang Sun. Later, a rebel spy reported to Ling Huqiao that the wooden man was actually Lei Wanchun himself. Ling Huqiao was shocked by the Tang general's unyielding spirit. A final battle with Ling Huqiao. Ling Huqiao requested a meeting with Jiang Sun. Standing atop the city walls, Jiang Sun faced his adversary. Ling Huqiao praised Jiang Sun's bravery, saying, "I see that your army is disciplined, and your warriors are fearless. But why do you resist fate?" Jiang Sun scoffed. "You traitors don't even understand the basic principles of loyalty and honor. And yet you dare to speak of fate?" Without waiting for a reply, Jiang Sun ordered his troops to charge. Ling Huqiao panicked and fled the battlefield. His 14 top officers were captured alive by Jiang Sun's soldiers. A year-long resistance. Although Ling Huqiao's full-scale assault had failed, he did not give up. He stationed his troops north of Yongqiu, repeatedly harassing Jiang Sun's supply routes. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Jiang Sun continued to lead surprise attacks, winning victory after victory. His 1,000 soldiers fought against tens of thousands of rebels, yet never lost. A call for help, the siege of Suiyang. A year into the war, Governor Su Yuan of Suiyang, modern Shanqiu, Hunan, sent an urgent plea for help. The rebel general Lin Ziqi was marching with 130,000 troops to besiege Suiyang. Hearing this, Jiang Sun immediately mobilized his forces and marched to reinforce Suiyang. His heroic defense of Yongqiu was only the beginning. A new battle awaited him in Suiyang, one that would become legendary in Chinese history.